Welcome, critters. I'm Claire Jones, your devoted host of the Sacred Reading CR podcast, where we discuss and examine Critical Role episodes, plot lines, characters, and players through the lens of sacred reading practices. And this particular episode is about Campaign 1, Episode 23, Part 1. And joining me today is Atlas.
Hey.
So I found a new icebreaker list, so we're mixing it up a little bit here. And today it's going to be, what famous animal movie character do you like the most?
Animal movie character?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like I need that question clarified.
Non-human, non-humanoid movie
Okay.
character.
Okay. I'm trying to think of any of them right now.
I know, I had to go to like old school Disney movies. Like I'll tell you what I thought of first, because it was like the first one that popped in my head, and I was like, okay, I'll go with that one because it's accurate. Is the raccoon from Pocahontas.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I do love Miko.
Is it Miko? Yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
Miki or Miko, or yeah, Miko, I think. Just because he's so mischievous, but he's also got like a heart. Like he makes friends with the hummingbird, and
He's a lot of fun,
he's a
yeah.
lot of fun. Like I would be friends with Miko for sure.
Yeah, I think he'd be up there for me too. I think the other one that makes the list is Pascal from Tangled, the little chameleon.
Yeah.
He's so sassy about it. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, it really does, when they can't talk, especially if it's not like a talking animal. Like we're not even going to talk about Donkey from Shrek, because like that's a whole different category, right? But to convey personality through animal mannerisms, yeah, like when you do it well, it's good.
It's also a great venue for sass in children's movies.
Yeah.
Because it's just a cute animal, but also they're not saying anything that could be like read as sarcasm or get people in trouble. It's just like body language and color. It's a lot of fun that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the jokes always land because it's like body language jokes. Like you don't need a high school degree to understand the jokes.
And you don't need to be able to read tone or sarcasm, or like it can't be taken out of context as easily. Like there's a lot of benefits to doing it with an animal companion instead of dialogue.
I was just thinking, another good animal character is the horse in Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yes.
Talk
that
about personality as well.
What is that horse's name?
It's beyond me at this time. It's been a long week. I don't know.
Fair enough. I'm gonna moving on.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. I mean, like we could talk about Spirit. We could talk about, I mean, even like Totoro, I guess, would count.
Yeah.
Maybe like the cat from Kiki's Delivery Service.
Right.
Like there's a lot of good ones out there, but Miko was the first one that I thought of, and I was like, yes.
Miko is great. My first thought was Mushu, and like, do the dragons count as animals, or are they?
Yeah, I would say so.
Even then, I think Pascal still beats him out.
I actually prefer the grasshopper more than Mushu,
for the same reason.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, he talks. I mean, it's still Eddie Murphy.
He talks too much. The grasshopper's more fun.
All right. Well, please join us as we embark on this exciting adventure in story analysis and self-reflection in order to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. And as always, we love hearing your own insights and stories as well. So please comment, like, subscribe below. And ready? All right, let's dive in. Vox Machina have just returned to Vasselheim after visiting the Fire Ashari so that Keyleth could complete another trial in her Aramente, the success of which will allow her to become the head of the Ashari people across Exandria. Pike has left them once again to continue her work at the Temple of Sarenrae, and the rest of the group wakes up the next morning in the Slayer's take. Grog rolls for his beer check, but fails, and Scanlan rejoins them after seemingly spending a week getting massaged and serviced by the working women of Vasselheim. They tell him that he missed Pike, and he freaks out, saying they should have called him on the message earring. Tiberius says that he did say something, but Scanlan told him not to bother him. Scanlan says next time to start with Pike, to put the most important information first. He says that he wasn't even at a brothel, but instead ran into Zara, and they had a nice slumber party with a few tieflings and talked all night. He says that he would have dropped everything, though, if he had known Pike was with them, the woman that he loves, the woman that he will marry and bear children with. He says he doesn't know if he will bear hers or she will bear his, and Tiberius says he hasn't seen a gnome give birth before. Percy asks if it would be better if there were trolls involved. Scanlan says, well, at least we're together again, and Keyleth tells him that they met her family. He says, what? I missed everything. Vex says they were gone for quite a while, and Scanlan says it was a very long slumber party. He says they did their nails and braided each other's hair, had some good food. He says, well, now that we're together again, we can get on the flying carpet and go somewhere fun. Vex says he missed everything, and Grog asks Keyleth or Tiberius to explain what happened to the carpet. Tiberius pulls the carpet out of his bag of holding and explains that it lost its enchantment. Vex says, yes, they killed the carpet and spent a lot of money, but they didn't die, so I guess that's a good thing. Keyleth and Tiberius tell him they killed a Rakshasa, and Percy compliments Vex, saying, it seems like a tremendous amount of alcohol changed her perspective. Well done. Scanlan asks what they're doing now, and Tiberius pulls out Lockheed, asking Keyleth if she can assess his health again, while Scanlan complains more about missing everything. Percy asks when was the last time they went home. Vex says if they are to go home, she would really, really, really like to stop by Craghammer first and pick up their money. Percy agrees, saying that's a reasonable request. Grog also requests that he wants to go again to the fighting pit in Vasselheim to try to beat Kern after losing the first time. He says that he wants to do it by the rules, and they agree. Tiberius asks about Lockheed again, and Keyleth makes a medicine check, confirming that he just needs time and good food. Keyleth feeds him a few more good berries, and Tiberius says that he does encourage Grog's violence and does want to go to Amon, but wants to go to Craghammer first. They tell him that's what they already decided on. He says, sorry, he was worried about Lockheed and didn't hear them. Grog asks him, did you say that you encourage my violence? Tiberius says, yes, and Grog immediately runs out of the room and down into the streets of Vasselheim. Keyleth yells at Tiberius, saying that he has to be more careful about what he says, and the rest of the group follows Grog. Keyleth says that they really need to make that leash they were considering for him as they follow Grog, who pushes people out of the way as he runs toward the braving grounds where he initially fought Kern. Tiberius casts Fly on himself to fly above the crowd, but the group yells at him, reminding him that they really do not like arcane magic in Vasselheim, and he concedes, coming back to the ground. Percy notices that there are now 5 bastions following Tiberius and keeping a close eye on him as a result. Vex tells Tiberius to keep a low profile for a while, then waves at the bastions, who break off and disappear into the crowd behind them. She hunters marks one of them and rolls a nat 20 with her sleight of hand check, keeping track of them as they go. They eventually enter the braving grounds area of the city and approach the Bellows Respite Inn, where the Crucible fighting pit is held. It's relatively empty at that time of day as Grog yells Kern's name over and over again. The barkeep comes out and calls Grog Philip, the fake name he gave for the first fight. He asks if he's looking for Kern, and Grog says yes. He tells them to stay right there, then runs back inside. Scanlan says, oh, there's going to be a street fight, and Keyleth yells into the crowd, fight! Other members of the tavern start emerging, and the news spreads town crier to town crier for the unexpected showdown. Vex notices that the bastion she had marked is standing around the corner watching them, but doesn't approach as the bookie shows up. He asks if Grog is challenging their standing champion once again, and Grog says yes, so the bookie turns and tells someone to get Kern immediately. Whispers go through the crowd as people gather, and Keyleth joins in, trying to tell Percy and Tiberius that Philip's fighting Kern, and they both say, we know. Percy suggests she try and make a new friend to tell. As about 20 minutes go by, more and more people gather excitedly. Grog turns to the bookie and gives him his entire coin purse, totaling over 1,300 gold pieces. And Tiberius starts to cast Mage Hand to catch the purse, but Percy slaps him again when he sees him trying to do magic again. Grog tells the bookie that he expects to see that double by the time he's done, then jumps into the pit to wait for Kern. The crowd starts cheering, and Scanlan bets 100 gold against Grog. Percy bets 500 pieces on Philip, and Tiberius adds another 612 to the pot for Grog. The crowd quiets as Kern the Hammer approaches with a section of his upper lip still missing after the last fight with Grog, and Vex bets another 600 gold on Philip. Keyleth keeps questioning why they're betting, and they convince her to put in some gold too. She offers up 5 gold, and Kern calls out to Grog. He asks if Grog enjoyed the present he sent him, and Grog pulls out Kern's upper lip from his belt, gives it a smell, and says he has enjoyed it very much, and he's here to collect the rest. He throws it in the middle of the pit, and Kern says that Grog is not wearing the medal he sent. He says it's a shame, really. He thought he'd be more proud of his status as second best. Kern then leaps down into the pit, and more people throw in their bets. Kern says that he can tell Grog has been training, but so has Kern. He pulls out his wineskin, and Grog says, "Hold. Surely a man of your stature would honor me by sharing a drink before this battle." Kern drinks from the wineskin, then throws it to Grog, who smells it and says he doesn't drink such piss water. He throws it to the side and pulls out his own wineskin, which he had filled with a potion of stone giant strength prior to the fight, and chugs it down. The bookie raises his hands and says, "We have here in the Crucible today a rematch of Titans. The standing champion of all the braving grounds of Vasselheim, Kern the Hammer, and challenging him once again, tail between his legs, intent on claiming his glory, returning to the Crucible, Philip." Grog yells, "No, there is no Philip. Philip is dead. It is Grog the Vengeful." And the crowd goes wild as everyone cheers, and they ready themselves as Kern says to Grog, "I'm going to take yours this time, boy." And they roll for initiative. Grog goes first and races toward Kern, ducking down and wrapping his arms around his waist from behind to throw him over his shoulder. He then uses his bonus action to rage. Kern gets up from prone and chuckles, biting his own wrist to tear off a piece of flesh, and goes into a frenzied rage. He moves into a monk stance, a new development from the last fight, then punches Grog with 2 precise hits. Grog goes into a frenzied rage and returns the punch, then shoves his thumbs into Kern's eyes to blind him, but is unsuccessful. He kicks him, and then Kern spins to give Grog a full roundhouse kick to the head. They trade blows for a while. I'm not going to give the play-by-play, but there is a lot of ear ripping and kicking and nut punching and dodging and all that good stuff. And the group starts a chant for Grog as the fight goes on, and Scanlan starts singing to send him some inspiration. Kern shows off his new monk moves, but Grog manages to blind him momentarily and stun him for a round, which allows Grog to jump on his head twice. Kern manages to get back up and bites Grog's face, ripping off his upper lip in revenge. They punch and kick some more, Grog repeatedly pummeling into Kern's nuts, and Scanlan yells at Kern, "Do you need some dick? Because I gave some to your mom last night." He casts cutting words, but it's not enough to make a difference in the fight. The group gets another chant going as Keyleth tries to cast Healing Word on Grog, but one of the Bastions catches her and accuses her of cheating. She tries to lie, but she's saying it's the language of her people, but it doesn't work, and the Bastion starts to pull her away. Scanlan tries to intercept, but Tiberius stops him and tries to bribe the Bastion with 10 gold. Tiberius ends up getting arrested as well, and the two of them get dragged away while Grog continues the fight. They punch and kick, and Kern yells at him, "This is my town." Grog goes unconscious, but uses his relentless rage to come back up to 1 hit point and goes, "Well, well, well, where have I seen this before? Time's up." He punches back, but misses his first 2, so Vex stands up for the crowd and flashes her tits at him. The crowd goes wild as Vax rushes to pull her shirt down, and Grog throws another missed punch. Kern sees how close he is to the edge, and Scanlan sings one last song of inspiration for Grog. Kern misses the first punch, then goes into patient defense to make Grog's hits at disadvantage. So Grog throws one last punch using Scanlan's inspiration and knocks Kern the fuck out. The crowd falls silent, and then Grog lets out a primal scream and everyone goes wild. The bookie yells out, "We now have a new champion of the Crucible, not Philip, but Grog the Victorious." On the edge of the pit, a hooded figure removes his hood to reveal an older man in his 60s. He wears ceremonial robes and nods to Grog, turning around and walking off into the crowd. Grog grabs his lip and approaches one of the clerics, asking them to reattach it successfully. People rush Grog, complimenting him and asking him for help with training, but he finds Scanlan and shakes his hand in gratitude. Tiberius tells them over the earring that he and Keyleth were arrested while Grog fought, but Scanlan says and points to Kern, "Before we go deal with our friends, that man fought a good fight. You should go make amends with him." The bookie hands Grog his massive winnings, and Grog goes, "Fuck that," and walks off with his money. Vex tells him to pay back what he lost her in the first fight, and it sobers him up a bit. So he walks over to Kern and extends a hand to him, saying, "Good fight, brother." Kern says that he is proud to have finally found his match, and that when he recovers, he will find Grog and demand a rematch. Kern asks where he can find him, and Grog says that if he's not at the Crucible, he can always find him in Amon at Greyskull Keep. Vex tells Kern, "Good luck with your dick, by the way," and Kern starts whimpering a little bit. The rest of the group collects their winnings, and Scanlan tries to trick the bookie into making him believe that he bet on Grog, but the bookie doesn't buy it. Tiberius asks over the earring if he can use his clout to get them out of the arrest, and they ask him how they got arrested in the first place. Vex tries to track their footprints and finds the small station meant for holding. She knocks on the door and tells the Bastion that they're looking for 2 mental patients who have gotten loose. She explains that they don't understand normal social rules, rolling a 24 on her deception check. The Bastion tells her that he doesn't want to do the paperwork anyways, so if she just wants to pay the fine and take them, that would work for him. Scanlan introduces himself as Vex's lawyer, Burt Reynolds, Esquire, and rolls a 20 on his deception check. Scanlan says that he has 2 reams of paperwork for the Bastion to fill out, in addition to the court costs, and the Bastion tells him to just hand over the 500 gold fine and be done with it. Scanlan says, make sure that they will still be able to collect their winnings from the pit, and the Bastion says he doesn't care what happens with the winnings. So Scanlan says that he can make the paperwork disappear as Vex pays the fine. The Bastion says that if he finds either of them making trouble in Vasselheim again, it's down to the oubliette. They go. Scanlan asks him to say oubliette again, and the Bastion stutters, out-talked by the master of out-talking, and shoves Keyleth and Tiberius out of the door. They explain what happened as they head back to Grog and return to the Bellows Respite Inn. Grog asks if there are any small lads running around that were happy to see him as the tavern falls silent upon their entry. He walks over to one of them asking, "How would you like to make a gold coin?" The lad agrees, and Grog hands him the second place medal that Kern had given him previously and asks him to make sure Kern gets it. They cheer to Grog the Victorious, and Keyleth and Tiberius retrieve their winnings, so Tiberius pays Vex back for the fine that she had to pay for them. They continue drink, and that's where they break for the episode. So what do we think about this first half?
This is actually one of my favorite combats of the early campaign, because even though they are doing the same thing over and over, they're just unarmed strikes. Travis really leans into the description and he lets himself shine through in them. Like that jock side starts to show.
Yeah.
And he's having so much fun with it that it's infectious.
Yeah.
And as I was watching it, I was like, this would actually be kind of a good masterclass in how to make your descriptions more interesting.
Very true.
For combat. Because especially with things like fighters and barbarians and monks, it can be a lot of I throw a punch. And Travis really takes this opportunity to turn it into something interesting and intriguing and different because he takes the time to describe specifics and motivations and differences in what he's doing. And I really, as I was listening to it on a drive and not watching the video for once, I was like, this is actually super engaging as a podcast, just because he's mixing it up and he's so excited about it. It's a lot of fun.
I mean, Travis is all about the strategy. Like
Yes.
he loves strategy, and Grog doesn't really allow him to display that much. But we do see it in this fight because he is very strategic about what punches he throws and what kicks he throws. And, you know, he spent a lot of time trying to hit one of Kern's knees and like tear the ACL. Like he specifically called out specific body parts that he was intentionally trying to weaken or target. And that is strategy within itself that, like you said, a lot of barbarians or even like fighters or like monks, people who rely on just like stabbing, hitting, kicking, like they don't really take as much time being creative with their moves than a wizard or, you know, a bard or any of those other more flashy classes.
It's easier to have fun descriptions with a spell that you can just imagine than it is to have it with a punch or a kick. But I think Travis really shines here in making it interesting and fun. I also think that his strategy evolved so much from the last time. Like last time he was just doing it to do it, and we really see him lean into it and play into the strategy this time.
Yeah.
And one that lets Travis shine, but also it shows where Grog's um wisdom score goes. Like his intelligence might be low, but he learns and he adapts and his strategy is there. So there's just a lot in this fight that is super fun to watch because of the way it's playing out for both the player and the character.
And in the D&D framework, we don't often get many opportunities to try again.
Right.
Like we don't go against a dragon and then fail and then try again against the same dragon often. Like it's usually like adventure to adventure to adventure to adventure. And we aren't, I mean, I think this is true in life too, is that we don't often get second chances to try to do things, especially if it's like something as pivotal as a pit fight. Like, we don't often get the chance to try again. And I think it says something to Travis's character to be like, yes, I want to try again. No, I'm not going to take the F. Like, I need to do this for myself.
Yeah. Well, and the way that like Percy first responded was, you want to go try again, don't you? Like he immediately knew that that's what Grog wanted. So this is something that his friends know about him. It is a fundamental character trait for Grog, is that he needs to learn and he needs to try again and to do his best. Which I love seeing about Grog, but I love that his friends know that about him and that they're so excited for him. They're just so into it immediately of, oh, you want to try again? Okay, we're behind you 100%. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to dismiss Grog as a character. And I know we've talked about this in the podcast before because he is just the dumb, big barbarian. Like he's the tank, he's the muscle of the group. And it's so easy to just dismiss him as the dumb barbarian. But it's episodes like these that really show that he does have nuance and he does have depth and he does, like you said, the support of this group for him. He creates family relationships in this group, even if it doesn't look the same way as it does between the other characters.
Yeah. So I just appreciate everything that he brought to it. And it's something about, so we just came off of, Keyless Aramente. Don't know what that first word was. Keyless Aramente. And so seeing kind of the contrast of how she learns and grows as opposed to Grog having the chance to learn and grow. We have this like back-to-back contrast of these two very different characters who have had the same opportunities to, maybe reevaluate some of what they're working on and give themselves a chance to see how far they've come. I think that having those two episodes back to back, it can be really easy to just focus on what Keela's been doing because hers is
Mm-hmm.
far more explicit, but we're
Totally.
seeing very similar paths for these two at the moment, which I
Mm-hmm.
found super interesting.
Yeah, like Grog doesn't have an Aramente, you know, like, and he doesn't
No,
even have like the revenge story that Percy, Vex, and Vax have either. They don't,
yeah,
he doesn't really have, like, yes, we learn about the conflict that he had with his tribe later on in this campaign and stuff like that, but he doesn't necessarily have a chip on his shoulder like a lot of the other characters do. Like
right.
he rolls with the punches a lot more than the other, literally and figuratively, than
Yeah,
the other characters. And it's his character arc is a lot more subtle.
yeah. Well, and this is our first appearance, named or not, of Earthbreaker Groon.
Totally.
So we're seeing the start of that arc for him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, the most dramatic arc that we'll ever see, but it is an important one for Grog, and it starts here. And we're starting to see just how much this particular fight needs.
Mm-hmm. And I really do enjoy the other characters in this as well, even though the focus isn't on them in this
Mm.
scenario. Like all of the dialogue that went on in the beginning of this episode is also very critical for their own personal growth stories as
Yes.
well. Like Vex's insistence on the money conversation is like time and time and time and time again. And of course, we're going to see that kind of resolved, but it never really gets resolved later on.
Yeah.
And, you know, we see Tiberius just not listening to anyone ever about anything. But we also see Scanlan subverting expectations every step along the way as well, which is what
Yeah.
his character does best, too. Like, he's also a character that we tend to dismiss as well, just like, you know, the womanizing bard. That's a very stereotypical trope for D&D. And here he's like, no, I was just having a slumber with friends, you know, and it's very interesting that we're seeing these mini character growths along with the major arcs that we see throughout the campaign.
Yeah, and I particularly enjoyed Scanlan's because he was coming back from a break from the party. And so it's super easy for him to just like fade into the background until he figures out what's going on. But he's out there and having fun with his friends and immediately back in the loop with people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and who knows how much of the truth he's telling because lots
Yeah.
of failed investigation checks or insight checks. Um, but I just love that that's the story he chooses to go with. Like whether it's true or not, it says a lot about him that that's what he wants to put out there.
Mm-hmm.
That he was having a nice time with some friends and a slumber party, and it says a lot about him that that is his priority in this moment where he could be bragging to all of his friends and he's just like, no, I just had a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the group still doesn't really take him that seriously,
No,
honestly.
it takes some certain major arcs in this
Yeah.
for them to actually start doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that these are such like similar to Grog, it's subtle character growth that you
Mm-hmm.
have to be specifically looking for in order to find.
Yeah. But that's the most important kind of character growth, especially in a show like Role, where it is so long and drawn out. These baby steps are what makes up character growth.
Yeah.
We see a lot of them with Keyless too. We see a lot of them with Scanlan. Like we have these big dramatic arcs with Percy and with Vax that have these defining moments of big character changes. I think these subtle ones are much more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think this is a really great showing of Scanlan's, Grog's, and even to some extent Keyless. I mean, we get to see just how naive she is when it comes to the betting. Um, so we're seeing kind of where she's at. which
I
is
was just
interesting.
thinking about how, because we talked about this a little bit in the last podcast of how the trials for Keyleth's Aramente act as major milestones for the group as a whole throughout the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly think that their visits to Vasselheim also serve the same purpose. They are, each
Yeah.
time they come to Vasselheim, they're at a different level. I mean, it's kind of like the sacred reading process too. Like they come to the same city time and time again, but they're different people each time they come to the city. And so the whole Keyleth getting into trouble in Vasselheim is an ongoing theme throughout the campaign, but it's just like at a slightly different level each time.
Yeah, and for slightly different motivations.
Mm-hmm.
Like here, she's trying to help her friend. We're going to see a few different ways of her getting in trouble later in the campaign. But it's a clear indication of how their motivations change and their priorities change, seeing how they come back to Vasselheim. So I'd agree with that statement. I hadn't thought about it before, but now that you've said it, it's like that's very obviously a big part of their trips back to Vasselheim. Is
Mm-hmm.
it's seeing it's a great blank slate for seeing just how much they've changed.
Well, it's also a stark contrast, even if we look at when they first arrived in Vasselheim and now,
Mm-hmm.
like the whole Hydra thing that happened the first time around, and now that they're in the Braving Grounds again, like, you know, Grog going into the Braving Grounds the first time, them encountering the Hydra the first time, them encountering like the disapproval of arcane magic the first time, and then how they're dealing with it now. Like, Grog was like, let me try again. Whereas Tiberius is still making the same fucking mistakes over and
Tiberius.
over again. Like, there's growth for the other characters between those 2 points in time, except for Tiberius.
I mean, he got slightly better in that he mentioned, now I think about what I'm doing and I stop instead of just going for it,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
But he still can't get it through his head.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that speaks to their characters as a whole, too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely there's a lot of interesting things that come out of what seems to be just a little bit of combat.
Yeah. And who would have thought that Grog going to a holy city would provide so much character growth for them?
Fair point.
I mean, because each step along the way, every time they visit Vasselheim, something major happens with Grog, too.
Yeah. It's kind of his city.
Yeah.
The more I think about it, like
Yeah.
a lot of the time when they're in Vasselheim, the big thing that happens
Is
is
Grog
for
related?
Grog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who
Hmm.
would have thought?
Yeah.
Well, what kind of personal experiences are coming up for us?
I think the weirdest one for me was so in the beginning when they're all kind of talking about what they're going to do. It's
Mm,
this whole conversation of we could do this, we could do that, and everybody's agreeing that they're all good ideas, and it takes one person to be super enthusiastic about something for everybody to have a good time.
mm,
Like that whole ambivalence and well, we'll just do whatever, you want
mm,
to do. We'll do whatever you want to do. It's like trying to make any decisions in a group and nobody wants to everybody's a people pleaser. Nobody wants to make the decision.
mm,
Um, so it was, I don't know, I guess the thing that's coming up for me is seeing how much enthusiasm comes from one person having an opinion for once.
mm,
Uh, it's little things like where are we going to go to lunch? Or, I met up with a bunch of old friends a couple weeks ago and we haven't seen each other in years. All we really want to do is talk, but nobody wants to make a decision on where to go.
mm,
And one set of friends that completely fizzled out because nobody would have an opinion.
mm,
And one set we actually made plans and actually got to see each other because somebody was just like, you know what? I'm just going to make a call. We're going here.
mm,
And it was the best time I have had in a long time because I haven't seen these friends in forever.
mm,
And all it took was somebody like making a decision. It was
mm,
just a very interesting parallel to see. Like mine is very low stakes. Like it's a couple of friends and where are we going to go to dinner? But the impact is still there of just somebody make a decision.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in today's age too, it's so hard to just like coordinate schedules in general that there has to be at least one person in the group that is like, we're going to make this happen.
Yeah.
We are doing the thing and we're going to make it happen.
And that in itself is mirrored in this of just like, I want to go have a second chance at this. I'm
Yeah.
going to do it. Are you coming with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's honestly what I'm thinking of most when it comes to personal experiences, because we run into this a lot where we're like, you know, the first time we met this person, it went badly. Or we had a really like, I failed miserably. I embarrassed myself in front of everyone. I fell down the stairs at this party and I'm just never going to contact these people ever again because I fell on my face and I wanted to melt into the floor. But like, it's inspirational to see Grog be like, no, I want to try again. Like it's so worthwhile to not let those initial experiences, those initial reactions, those initial like firsthand impressions color the entire relationship or color the entire experience. Like we all suck when we begin, right? Like if we're learning a instrument, if we're learning, you know, algebra, like whatever, coding, like we all are going to have that beginner's suckiness when we start it, but it takes a strong person to try again instead of just being like, oh, I'm not a coder because I tried once and it was awful. Oh, I'm not a musician because I tried once and it sounded like a cat was dying. Like there's value and validity in trying again, and not letting those previous experiences overly color future experiences.
Yeah, it's so easy to do that though.
It's so easy.
It's
It's
so,
so
so
easy.
easy. But a little bit of persistence goes a long way.
Yeah, I'm actually writing a character right now in one of my books who is going through a very similar experience right now. Like his first experience with something was awful. Like he ended up being massively injured and is now like disfigured because of it, like scars all over his body and da 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 da. And one of his driving motivations in the plot is to try again and to build himself back up after that experience. And I never actually made that connection until we started talking about it. And I was like, oh, this is very similar to the character that I'm writing right now. And it's giving me more context and nuance to think about in regards to that character and not it just being like, well, I failed and I'm just not going to try again.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, that's where I default. You know, I am in a natural perfectionist, and it's a, this didn't go well, so I'm just never gonna touch it again, ever. And it's important to not do that, and I'm working on it. Uh, but it's easy to see where that might go if you can change that mindset in things like this. You know, in media, seeing people take that second step, even when it went badly, is an encouragement for us to do it in our personal lives.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Well, I mean, that begs the question, what are we going to do about it?
You know, I could go with the when in doubt, try again. Uh, but I think the bigger thing for me was being the person who makes a call. Like, I am very much a people pleaser. I will do whatever other people want to do. I don't really care.
Totally.
But sometimes you need to be the person who makes a decision, and
Yeah.
that doesn't come naturally to me. But I think the thing that I got out of this, and the thing that I, you know, has come up recently in my life, is that I can be the decision maker and the one that makes it happen. I just need to do it. And to be okay with the one making the call. And it doesn't matter if people are, you know, want to do one or the other. If they don't make the decision, it's better to make the decision than let it fall apart.
I so relate to that. Like that's actually been an active practice of mine in the last year, 2 years of being like, all right, I need to start saying no more often. Like, I need to start putting these boundaries out there and being like, no, I'm not going to engage with that, but I will engage this way, or I will put my opinion out there and you can do with it what you like. Like, it doesn't matter how you feel about my opinion. The point is me vocalizing it.
Yeah.
For sure. And I specifically think about this a lot when it comes to the world of business, and like, there's this knee-jerk urge when you are marketing yourself, when you are promoting yourself, when you are trying to make connections and like valuable contacts and stuff, to like be like, oh yeah, I'll meet you at any time, oh yeah, I'll be there, oh yeah, like I'll meet with this person because it might lead into this, and like, you know, I'll do anything it takes to like,
but it's so open-ended, it's unhelpful.
Totally. Like, and then you end up in Zoom calls at 8 p.m. at night on a Saturday, and you end up like
or
trying,
not at all.
Yeah, bend over backwards for all these people, and you're running yourself into the ground when you should be like shoring yourself up. Like,
yeah,
it's fascinating to watch, especially now that I'm kind of on the other side of it. Like, no has actually become my default response now, when before it was always like, yes, I'll try, yes, I'll be accommodating, yes, I'll be flexible. Whereas now I need to stop making no automatic response and come up with some type of happy middle ground between.
Yeah, balance is everything there.
Like, someone asked me to go out and hang out tonight, and that, like, my first answer was like, no, I don't want to, because I'm tired and like I need to clean my apartment. And then like the more I thought about it, I was like, you know, it's actually like gonna benefit me if I go out and enjoy it instead of dying on my couch for another evening.
Yeah, I sympathize.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anything you want to add before we wrap up for today?
I think I'm good.
Well, this is powerful stuff that we're talking about. It's basically therapy, honestly. And audience, we definitely encourage you to share your own thoughts and feelings and insights and stories with us as well. We'd love to know how Critical Role has impacted you in your own lives. So special thanks to Alice for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Always happy to be here.
So next time we'll be discussing Campaign 1, Episode 23, Part 2, and joining me again will be Atlas, so I'm excited for that. And I'm always looking for more co-hosts and guests, so if you're interested in coming on this series and sharing your own perspectives, please reach out to me and I'll send you the sign-up link. In the meantime, please comment, like, subscribe below, follow us on Tumblr at Sacred Reading CR, and until next time, may all beings be peaceful, may all beings be free, and be the chaotic good you wish to see in the world. Take care, everyone.
Bye.